I thought asking for one day off would be the easiest request I had ever made. I was wrong because when I placed the leave form on my CEO's desk, she looked at the reason. Then she looked at me and the Ice Queen CEO said, "No, my name is Ethan Parker. For 4 years I worked at Evermont International. My position was Executive Operations Manager. Basically, I solved problems before they reached the CEO. Schedules, projects, emergency decisions, important clients, anything that needed someone reliable. And my boss, Victoria Sterling, the CEO of Evermont International, the woman everyone called the Ice Queen CEO. Victoria Sterling was famous for three things: her intelligence, her discipline, and her complete lack of interest in romance. She was 31 years old, the youngest CEO in the company's history. She built Evermont from a struggling startup into a global technology company. Investors admired her. Competitors feared her. Employees respected her, but nobody could get close to her. Executives introduced her to wealthy heirs. She refused. Business partners invited her to private dinners. She declined. Friends tried arranging dates. She ignored them. Everyone said the same thing: Victoria Sterling only cares about work. I believe that too, mostly because I had worked beside her for 4 years. I knew the woman behind the reputation. I knew she drank black coffee because she forgot to eat breakfast. I knew she stayed late because she worried about employees making mistakes. I knew she secretly donated to the company's emergency fund. Victoria was not cold. She was careful, but careful people were sometimes the hardest to understand. "Ethan," I looked up from my desk. My coworker Ryan stood there. "What?" He pointed at my computer. "You're smiling." I immediately stopped. "No, I am not." "Yes, you are." "I am working." Ryan laughed. "You are reading a message from your mother." I sighed. Unfortunately, he was right. My mother had sent me another message. "Don't forget Saturday. Your blind date is at 7 p.m. I stared at the screen. A blind date? The idea still felt strange, but my mother had been asking for months. When will you settle down? When will you bring someone home? When will you stop living inside your office? And honestly, she had a point. My entire life had become work, especially after joining Evermont. The problem was working beside Victoria Sterling have ruined my expectations. How could ordinary people impress me after seeing someone like her? Of course, I never considered Victoria. That would be ridiculous. She was my CEO, my boss, the woman who could decide my entire career with one signature. So, I did the only reasonable thing. I asked for leave. The next morning, I walked into Victoria's office. She was reading reports. Of course, she always looked like she was born sitting behind that desk. "Victoria," she looked up. "Yes. I need to request leave." Her expression barely changed. "How long?" "1 day." "For what?" I hesitated because somehow telling my CEO felt more embarrassing than telling my mother. "A personal matter." Victoria looked at me. She always noticed everything. "What personal matter?" I remained silent. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Ethan." "Yes." "Are you hiding something?" "No, that was too fast." I sighed. "I have a blind date." Silence. The room became completely quiet. Victoria slowly put down her pen. "A blind date?" Yes, I expected a normal reaction. Maybe surprise, maybe a joke, maybe nothing. Instead, she picked up my leave form. She looked at the reason, then signed something. I relaxed. "Thank you." Then she turned the paper around. My smile disappeared. In the approval section, she had written, "Denied." I looked at her. "Denied?" "Yes." I blinked. "What?" Victoria calmly returned the document. "Because you cannot go." I frowned. "Why not?" She looked directly at me. "Because you could only marry me." My brain stopped working. For several seconds I wondered if I heard wrong. "Victoria, yes. You just denied my leave request." "Yes." "Because of my blind date?" "Yes." "And your reason is," she answered without hesitation, "you can only marry me." I stared at the Ice Queen CEO. The woman who never showed emotion. The woman who rejected every man who approached her, and now she was telling me I could only marry her. Is this a joke? "No, Victoria, you are my boss." "I know. I am requesting personal leave." "I know I am going on a date with someone else." "I know." She stood up, then walked around her desk for the first time. She looked nervous. "Ethan, yes. I have spent 4 years watching you take care of everyone." Pause. "Watching you solve problems. Watching you protect this company." She stopped in front of me and I finally realized something. "What?" "I do not want to watch someone else become the person waiting for you at home." I could not speak. The Ice Queen CEO was jealous. Before I could answer, her assistant knocked. Miss Sterling. Victoria turned. Yes, the board meeting is ready. The assistant looked between us. Then at the leave form, her expression changed. Victoria picked up the document. Tell them I will be there. She looked at me and Ethan. Yes. She handed me the denied leave request. Cancel the blind date. I stared. What? She smiled slightly. A rare smile. Because tomorrow, a pause. I will show you why your CEO should be your only choice. Then she walked away. And for the first time in 4 years, I was not worried about a business crisis. I was worried about my CEO. Because Victoria Sterling had just turned my simple leave request into a marriage proposal. I thought Victoria Sterling was joking. That was the only explanation. Because there was no way the woman who controlled a billion-dollar company had just told her employee, "You could only marry me." The next morning, I expected things to return to normal. I expected Victoria to walk into the office, open her laptop, discuss business, pretend yesterday never happened. That was the Victoria Sterling I knew. Professional, calm, impossible to read. But when I arrived at work, something was different. My desk had a coffee waiting. Not just any coffee. The exact coffee I always ordered. No sugar. Extra hot. I looked around. Ryan noticed immediately. You got coffee? Yes. From who? I looked at him. What? He pointed at the cup. Because nobody in this company knows your order. I became quiet because he was right. Almost nobody knew except one person, Victoria. Before I could think about it, my phone received a message from her. Come to my office. Of course I walked in. Victoria was standing near the window, the city behind her, the same position she used whenever she was making important decisions. Ethan, yes. Did you cancel the blind date? I stared. That is your first question? Yes. I sighed. No. Expression changed. Not dramatically. Most people would not notice, but I did. You did not know why. I looked at her. Because I still do not understand what happened yesterday. Victoria was silent. Let me ask you something. Go ahead. What? She knew exactly what I meant. Why did you stop me? For a moment, the CEO disappeared. Only Victoria remained. Because I was too late. I frowned. Too late? Yes. She walked back to her desk. For 4 years. I had a reason not to say anything. What reason? You worked for me. I nodded. That is a good reason. Yes, she agreed. I respected that. She looked at me. I never crossed that line. That surprised me because from the outside it looked like she suddenly decided to interfere. But then yesterday she paused. You said you were going on a blind date. I waited and I realized something. What? That line was the only thing stopping me. My heart skipped. Victoria, she continued. I spent 4 years telling myself it was inappropriate. I spent 4 years telling myself I was only protecting a valuable employee. Pause. But when you said another woman might become important to you, her voice became softer. I realized I was lying to myself. I did not know what to say because Victoria Sterling admitting something like this was almost impossible. You are serious? I said yes. You really want me? Yes. What? She looked directly at me. Because you are the only person who never wanted anything from me. I became quiet. Everyone sees Victoria Sterling, the CEO. Applause. They want connections, opportunities, influence. She looked at me. But you just asked if I had eaten lunch. I smiled slightly. That is your reason? Yes, that is a very strange reason. No, she shook her head. It is the reason that mattered. Before I could answer, her assistant entered. Miss Sterling. Yes. The investors are waiting. Victoria nodded, then looked at me. Come with me. I froze. Me? Yes. What? She picked up a folder. Because today I am announcing a new project. I followed her. The investor meeting was important. Everyone at the table was a major shareholder. Victoria presented the company's next expansion plan. Everything was perfect. Numbers, strategy, growth. Then one investor asked, Miss Sterling, yes, we noticed your executive operations manager is attending. The room became quiet. I knew what they were thinking. Victoria answered calmly. Yes, why? She looked at me then back at them. Because Ethan Parker is leading this project. I froze. The investor frowned. Leading? Yes, but he is not a senior executive. Victoria nodded. I know. Then why? She answered. Because titles do not create ability. The room went silent. He has spent 4 years solving problems nobody else noticed. He understands this company better than many executives. She looked around. If we only promote people who already have titles, a pause, we will never discover new leaders. Nobody argued. After the meeting, I caught up with her. Victoria. Yes. Why did you do that? Do what? Put me in charge. She looked confused. Because you can do it. That is not the whole reason. A small smile appeared. You know me too well. I waited. She answered, because I wanted everyone to understand something. What? You are not someone standing behind me. Pause. You are someone standing beside me. I looked at her. For years, I thought Victoria saw me as an employee, someone useful, someone reliable. But I was wrong. She saw me as an equal. That evening, I finally called my mother. Mom, did you go on the blind date? I hesitated. No. What? I looked at Victoria's message on my phone. Dinner at 7. Do not be late. I smiled. Because someone else already decided I am taken. My mother became silent. Oh. I looked toward Victoria's office. Visio. A few seconds later, my mother shouted. Visio. I laughed. But before I could explain, another message arrived from Victoria. Ethan, tomorrow you are meeting my family. I froze. I immediately replied, your family? Her answer came quickly. Yes, if you are going to refuse the blind date, you should know who you are choosing instead. I stared at the message. The Ice Queen CEO had stopped my blind date, taken over my project, and now she was introducing me to her family. I had spent 4 years thinking Victoria Sterling was impossible to approach. I was beginning to realize she had already walked toward me. I had faced difficult situations before. Difficult clients, impossible deadlines, angry investors. But nothing prepared me for one thing. Meeting Victoria Sterling's family. The next day, I arrived at Victoria's house. Not her office, not the company headquarters, her home. That alone surprised me, because Victoria Sterling was a person who separated everything. Work was work. Private life was private. Nobody from the company knew where she lived. Nobody knew what she did after leaving the office. But now I was standing at her front door. She opened it herself. I looked at her. You opened the door? She raised an eyebrow. Yes. The CEO of Evermont opens her own door. She smiled slightly, only for important people. I froze for a second, because Victoria did not say things like that casually inside. Everything surprised me. I expected something cold, modern, almost like a hotel. But it was warm, simple, comfortable. You are surprised, she said. I looked around. Yes. What? Because your office feels like you, she frowned slightly. And this does not. I smiled. No, she looked curious. What? Because this feels like someone lives here. For a moment, Victoria said nothing. Then she smiled. You are the first person who noticed. Before I could respond, a voice came from the kitchen. Victoria. A woman walked out. Older, elegant, warm. She looked at me, then immediately smiled. You must be Ethan. I looked at Victoria. How does she know my name? Victoria calmly answered. Because I talk about you. I froze. Her mother smiled. Too much. Actually, Victoria immediately looked uncomfortable. Mom, I had never seen Victoria Sterling embarrassed before. Not during negotiations, not during meetings, not even when she proposed to me. But now, her own mother had defeated her with one sentence. Please sit, her mother said. The dinner was simple. No business discussion, no pressure, just conversation. And that was when I discovered something. Victoria's family was completely different from what I imagined. They were not focused on wealth or status or business connections. They cared about one question. Do you make Victoria happy? Her father asked me. I almost choked. Victoria immediately said, Dad, but he ignored her. I know my daughter. He looked at me. She is strong. She is successful. She is respected. Applause. But she has spent years believing she has to handle everything alone. I looked at Victoria. She became quiet. Her father continued, so I want to know. Can you stand beside someone like her? I thought about it, then answered honestly. I cannot promise I will solve every problem for her. Pause. But I can promise she will never face them alone. The room became quiet. Victoria looked at me and I saw something in her eyes. Pride. Her father nodded. That is the right answer. After dinner, Victoria walked me outside. You were nervous, she said. I laughed. Yes. What? Because your father looked more intimidating than any investor I have met. She smiled. He likes you. I noticed. We stood near her driveway. Quiet. Then she said, Ethan, yes. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you not cancel the blind date immediately? The question surprised me. Because I thought you were joking. She looked away. I was not. I know that now. Pause. But Victoria, yes, I need to understand. What? You're my CEO. Yes, you are powerful. Yes, you could choose anyone. She looked at me. But you chose me. Victoria was silent. Then she said, yes, why? She stepped closer. Because everyone else sees what I have. Pause. You saw what I carry. I became quiet. That answer stayed with me. The next morning, something unexpected happened. I arrived at Evermont and immediately noticed something strange. Everyone was looking at me. Ryan walked over. Ethan, what? You know the company announcement? I frowned. No, he showed me his phone. The headline shocked me. Evermont CEO Victoria Sterling announces new executive partner position. I read the article. The new position, the responsibilities, the name, my name. I looked at Ryan. This is a mistake. No, it has to be. No, he smiled. Your CEO just made you our most important executive. I stared at the screen, but there was something else. At the bottom of the announcement, the appointment will be officially confirmed at the annual shareholder meeting. I immediately went to Victoria's office. She was already waiting. Then yes, you saw it. I placed the phone down. What? She looked at me. Because you deserve it. That is not the whole reason. She smiled. You really know me. I waited. Victoria walked closer. Because I do not want anyone to think you are beside me because I chose you. Pause. I want them to know you are beside me because you belong there. My heart moved. But then her expression changed. However, I frowned. What? The shareholder meeting will not be easy. What? She looked at the documents on her desk. Because some people believe you are only here because of me. I understood the company, the position, our relationship. Everything would be questioned. Victoria looked at me. Are you ready? I smiled. 4 years ago, I worked for the Ice Queen CEO. Pause. Now I guess I have to stand beside her. For the first time, Victoria looked relieved. But neither of us knew the shareholder meeting would reveal something bigger because someone from Victoria's past was about to return. And they were determined to prove one thing. I was never worthy of her. I had faced rejection before. Job interviews, business proposals, investment meetings, but none of those felt like walking into a room where everyone believed I did not deserve the person beside me. The shareholder meeting was scheduled for Monday. By then, the entire company knew. The CEO had created a new executive position. The person selected was not a famous executive, not an experienced businessman, not someone from a wealthy family. It was me, Ethan Parker, and everyone had the same question. What? I understood them. If I saw the situation from the outside, I would probably ask the same thing. Victoria Sterling was one of the most powerful CEOs in the industry. She could have chosen anyone. A billionaire heir, a famous executive, someone with decades of experience. Instead, she chose the person who used to bring her coffee and fix problems behind the scenes. The night before the meeting, I could not sleep. Victoria noticed. Of course she did. You are thinking too much. She said. I looked up. How do you know? You stopped drinking your coffee. I looked at the cup in my hand. She was right. I had been holding it for 10 minutes. I'm worried. I admitted. Victoria sat beside me. About tomorrow? Yes. What? I laughed softly. Because everyone thinks I am here because of you. She was silent. Then she asked, do you believe that? I looked at her. What? Do you believe you are here because of me? I hesitated. No good. She looked at me. Then why are you worried about people who do? I smiled. You make everything sound simple. No. She shook her head. I just know you better than they do. That sentence stayed with me. The next morning, we entered the shareholder meeting together. The moment we walked in, I felt the atmosphere change. Some people smiled, some people whispered. Some people did not even hide their doubt. Victoria walked to her seat. You sit beside here, not behind here, beside here. The chairman opened the meeting. Today we are discussing the appointment of the new executive partner position. He looked at the shareholders. Before voting, concerns will be addressed. A man near the end of the table raised his hand. Richard Vale. Victoria looked at him. Mr. Vale. I recognized the name. Victoria's former business partner. One of the earliest investors of Evermont. But unlike other investors, he had never accepted Victoria becoming the company's sole leader. He looked at me. "So this is Ethan Parker?" "Yes," Victoria answered. He smiled. "The person who suddenly became the CEO's closest executive." I knew that tone, not a question, an accusation. Victoria remained calm. "Mr. Parker earned this position." Richard leaned back. "Earned?" "Yes." He looked at the documents. For years as an operations manager. A limited management background. No previous executive experience. Pause. Yet now he becomes the second most powerful person in Evermont. The room became quiet. Victoria looked at him. "Your point?" "My point is simple." He looked at me. "Would you have created this position if he was not someone you wanted personally?" The question was direct. I expected Victoria to answer, but before she could, I spoke. "No." Everyone looked at me. Victoria turned slightly. I continued. "No, this position would not exist if I was not qualified." Richard smiled. "Interesting. But it is true," I said. "I do not want this position because Victoria offered it." Pause. "I want it because I know what I can contribute." Richard leaned forward. "Then prove it." The word surprised everyone. "Excuse me. Prove you deserve it." He looked around the room. "Give us one reason why the CEO should choose you over someone with more experience." I looked at Victoria. She did not say anything. She trusted me to answer. So I did, because experience does not always mean understanding. The room became quiet. For 4 years I have been inside this company. I know where projects fail. I know where communication breaks down. I know what employees struggle with. Pause. I know this company from the ground level. I looked at the shareholders. And I believe leadership is not about standing above people. It is about knowing what they need. Nobody spoke. Then Richard smiled. "A good speech." A pause, but words are easy. He placed a document on the table. "Let us discuss results." The screen behind him turned on. A project report appeared. My project, the one Victoria assigned me. Richard pointed at the numbers. "This expansion plan has risks." He looked at me. "Can you guarantee success?" The question was impossible. No business leader could guarantee success. So I answered honestly. "No." Some shareholders looked surprised. Richard smiled. "At least you admit it." I nodded. "But I can guarantee something else." "What?" "That we will know every risk before it becomes a problem." I walked toward the screen. "Because this plan is not based on predictions. It is based on preparation." For the next 20 minutes I explained everything. Costs, risks, solutions, backup plans. When I finished, the room was silent. Not because I had impressed everyone, because I had answered every question. Finally, one shareholder spoke. "I have another question." "Yes." "Why does Victoria Sterling trust you?" This time I did not answer. I looked at Victoria. She stood. "I trust Ethan because he has proven himself every day." Pause. "But there is something more important." Everyone listened. "He never needed my trust to do the right thing." The room became quiet. "He helped this company before he knew I was watching." Pause. "And that is why I know he deserves to stand here." For the first time, Richard had no immediate response. The vote was postponed. But as we left the meeting, Victoria received a message. She looked at her phone. Her expression changed. "What happened?" I asked. She handed me the phone. A photo, an old photo. Victoria, a young man, and a newspaper article. The headline, "Victoria Sterling's former fiancé returns after 4 years." I looked at her. Former fiancé. Victoria became silent. Then I waited. Then she said, "I was going to tell you," but before she could continue, another message appeared. "Tomorrow's shareholder meeting will expose why Victoria Sterling never married him." I looked at the screen. Someone from Victoria's past had returned. And they were not coming back for her. They were coming back for me. I thought I knew everything about Victoria Sterling. I knew how she worked. I knew how she made decisions. I knew what made her angry. I knew what made her smile. But that night, I realized there was one part of her life I had never seen. Her past. The photo on her phone stayed in my mind. Victoria, a man beside her. A newspaper headline. Victoria Sterling's former fiancé returns after 4 years. Former fiancé. Those 2 words bothered me more than I wanted to admit. Not because Victoria had a past. Everyone had a past. Because I suddenly wondered, why did she never tell me? When we arrived home, Victoria was unusually quiet. That alone worried me. Because Victoria Sterling was never quiet because she had nothing to say. She was quiet because she was deciding whether to say something. Victoria. Yes. Who is he? She looked at me. His name is Alexander Reed. Your fiancé? Applause. Yes. The answer was honest. And somehow that made it easier. How long ago? 4 years ago, before Evermont became what it is today. Yes. I nodded, trying to understand. Why did it end? For the first time, Victoria looked uncomfortable. Because I discovered something. What? He loved my position more than he loved me. I said nothing. Victoria walked toward the window. When my company was struggling, he disappeared. Pause. When I needed support, he gave me advice. What kind of advice? To sell the company. I frowned. What? Because he believed I would fail. That surprised me. Because everyone who knew Victoria knew one thing. She did not fail easily. He thought Evermont would collapse. Yes. And now a small smile appeared. Now he wants to return. I understood. He did not come back because he believed in Victoria. He came back because everyone else did. The next morning, Alexander Reed appeared at Evermont. And immediately I understood why people once considered him a match for Victoria. He was successful, confident, charming, the type of person who belonged in boardrooms. He walked into Victoria's office like he had been there yesterday. Victoria. She looked up. Alexander. He smiled. You look exactly the same. And you do not. His smile faded slightly. I was standing beside her. He looked at me. And you must be Ethan. Yes. He smiled. The famous executive partner. I did not like his tone, not because he insulted me, because he was measuring me. Congratulations, he said. It must be impressive. Thank you. To go from operations manager to standing beside Victoria Sterling. Applause. Not everyone gets that opportunity. I knew what he meant. Victoria did too, Alexander. Her voice became colder. You came here for business. He smiled. Of course. Then he placed a folder on the desk. A proposal? Victoria looked at it. What is this? A partnership? I frowned. With who? Alexander smiled. My company. Silence. Victoria opened the folder. After reading a few pages, her expression changed. Not surprise. Concern. What? I asked. She handed me the documents. I read them and immediately understood. It was not a normal partnership. It gave Alexander access to Evermont's most important technology. Why would you agree to this? I asked. Alexander looked at me. I did not. He looked at Victoria. I'm offering it. I looked at Victoria. She closed the folder. No. Alexander's smile disappeared. No. No. You did not even consider it. I did. Pause. And my answer is no. Alexander leaned back. You have changed. Victoria looked at him. No. I have always been this way. The room became quiet. Alexander stood. Then I suppose we will discuss this at the shareholder meeting. He looked at me. Especially your position. After he left, I looked at Victoria. Why does he care about my position? She was silent. Victoria. She sighed. Because he believes you are the reason I rejected him. I froze. What? Victoria looked at me. Alexander does not understand why I chose someone else. Pause. He thinks you replaced him. I laughed softly. That is impossible. What? Because I am not competing with him. Victoria looked at me. Ethan, yes, that is exactly why I chose you. I became quiet. That evening, the shareholder meeting continued. Alexander arrived early and he came prepared. He presented documents, old records, old agreements. Then he said the words that changed the room before Ethan Parker became important. Pause. I was the person Victoria Sterling planned to marry. Everyone looked at Victoria, Alexander continued. So, I think shareholders deserve to know, he looked at me. Is Ethan Parker truly qualified? Pause. Or is he simply the person Victoria chose after I left? The room became silent. I looked at Victoria. For the first time, I saw anger in her eyes. Not because he attacked me, because he misunderstood everything. Victoria stood. Alexander. He smiled. Yes, you made one mistake. What? She looked at me. You think I chose Ethan because I needed someone after you? Pause. You are wrong. The entire room listened. I chose Ethan because I knew who he was before anyone else did. Alexander's expression changed. Victoria continued. You left whenever M was struggling. You doubted me when I needed support. Pause. Ethan stayed. Silence. He stayed when nobody noticed. He helped when nobody rewarded him. He believed in this company before it became successful. She looked at Alexander. That is the difference. But Alexander was not finished. He smiled. Beautiful speech. Pause. But speeches do not decide shareholder votes. He placed another document on the table. This does. The chairman picked it up. His expression changed. What is this? Alexander smiled. The original ownership agreement of Evermont. Everyone looked confused. Victoria's expression turned serious because she recognized it. I looked at her. What is it? She did not answer immediately. Then she whispered something I thought disappeared 4 years ago. And suddenly I realized Alexander did not return because he wanted Victoria back. He returned because he had something that could destroy everything she built. I had seen Victoria Sterling face impossible situations. A collapsing project, an angry investor, a company crisis. She always reacted the same way. Calm, focused, certain. But when Alexander Reed placed that document on the table, I saw something different. For the first time, Victoria Sterling looked uncertain. Not because she was afraid of losing money, not because she was afraid of losing power, because whatever was inside that document was connected to a part of her life she had buried. The chairman looked at the papers. Miss Sterling. Victoria did not answer immediately. Would you like to explain? The entire room waited. Victoria finally spoke. Yes. She took a breath. 4 years ago, before Evermont became a public company, we had private investors. I listened carefully. At that time, the company was struggling. I looked at her. The same time Alexander left. Several investors wanted control. Victoria continued. They believed the company should be sold, but you refused. I said. She nodded. Yes. What? Her eyes moved toward the company logo behind the chairman. Because I knew Evermont could become something greater. That sounded exactly like Victoria. But there was a problem. What problem? The company needed additional funding. The room became quiet. Alexander smiled. Tell them the rest. Victoria looked at him. I signed an agreement. The shareholders reacted. What agreement? Alexander answered before she could. One that gave certain investors decision rights if the company failed to meet specific targets. I frowned. Decision rights? Yes, Victoria said quietly. If Evermont failed, they could force a sale. I understood. And Evermont had almost failed, but it survived. Because Victoria saved it. So why does this matter now? I asked. Alexander smiled. Because there is another clause. He tapped the document. One that states, if Victoria Sterling enters a personal relationship that creates a conflict of interest, a pause. Investors can request a leadership review. The room became silent. Everyone looked at Victoria, then at me. I immediately understood. This was never about the company. This was about removing Victoria. Alexander wanted to use me against her. Are you saying one shareholder asked that Ethan Parker creates a conflict? Alexander nodded. Exactly. I looked at Victoria. She remained calm. But I knew her. She was angry. Not for herself. For me, Alexander. Her voice became cold. You are using an outdated agreement to question current leadership. He smiled. Because it still exists. Does it? The room became quiet. Victoria looked at the legal team. Check the date. The lawyer immediately opened the documents. A few seconds passed. Then his expression changed. Miss Sterling, what? There is a problem. Alexander smiled. Exactly. The lawyer looked confused. This agreement was amended 3 years ago. The smile disappeared from Alexander's face. What? The lawyer continued. The investor rights were converted into standard shareholder rights after Evermont's restructuring. Silence. I looked at Alexander for the first time. He looked nervous. Victoria leaned back. So the document you brought a pause has no authority. The room changed instantly. Alexander's confidence disappeared, but he recovered quickly. Fine. He looked at me, but the question remains. Everyone turned. Is Ethan Parker qualified? The chairman looked thoughtful. Victoria started to answer, but I stopped her. Lemmy looked at me. I walked forward. Alexander. He smiled. Yes. You keep asking whether I am qualified. Pause. But you have never asked what I have done. I opened my folder. The documents I prepared before the meeting. 4 years ago I joined Evermont. I was not an executive. I did not have influence, but I worked on every major operational problem. The screen changed project reports, performance numbers, efficiency improvements. These are the results. The shareholders watched. I did not receive this position because Victoria chose me. Pause. I received it because before she chose me, I looked at Victoria. I chose this company. Nobody spoke. After the meeting ended, the board decided to continue reviewing Alexander's claims, but everyone knew something had changed. Alexander had expected me to collapse. Instead, he gave me the chance to prove myself. Outside the room, Victoria stopped me. Ethan. Yes. You did not have to defend me. I smiled. Yes. No. She shook her head. You're always doing that. Doing what? Standing in front of problems that are not yours. I looked at her. Victoria. Yes. You did the same thing for me. She became quiet. At that moment, I realized something. We were more alike than I thought. That night, Victoria finally told me the whole story. Alexander was not just her former fiancé. He was someone she once trusted, someone she believed would stand beside her. But whenever Mont was struggling, he chose the safer option. He left. Victoria stayed. And that was when she learned something. Success revealed who truly believed in you. Before I left, Victoria asked, Ethan, yes. Do you regret this? Regret what? Being involved in my world. I looked at her. Visio. The woman everyone admired. The woman who once denied my leave request because I wanted to go on a blind date. I smiled. No, what? Because my world became bigger when you entered it. For a moment, Victoria said nothing. Then her phone rang. She answered, yes. Her expression changed. What? I immediately knew something was wrong. What happened? She ended the call, then looked at me. The board found something. What? Alexander did not bring the agreement to destroy me. I frowned. Then what? Victoria looked at the document again because he knew something else was hidden inside it. What? She slowly turned the page and I saw her expression change completely. There was a signature. A name? A name that should not have been there. Ethan Parker. I froze. What? Victoria looked at me. Ethan, you were connected to Evermont before you joined. I stared at the document. That is impossible. But the signature was mine. Or at least it looked exactly like mine. And suddenly I realized this was not just Victoria's past. It was mine too. I stared at the document in Victoria's hand. My name, my signature, a company agreement from 4 years ago. It felt impossible because I had never invested in Evermont. I had never owned shares. I had never signed any major business documents. At least that was what I believed. Victoria. My voice was quieter than I expected. What is this? She did not answer immediately. That scared me more than anything because Victoria always had an answer. The woman who could analyze a billion-dollar deal in minutes was looking at a piece of paper like it had changed everything. Ethan, yes. Do you remember your father? The question surprised me. My father. My father passed away when I was young. He was a businessman, not a famous one, not wealthy, just someone who worked hard. What does he have to do with this? Victoria looked at the document. Your father was one of Evermont's original investors. I froze. What? That is impossible. No. She shook her head. Your father invested before the company became what it is today. I stared at her. Why did nobody tell me? Victoria was silent. Because after he passed away, a pause. The shares were transferred. To who? She looked at me. To you. The room became silent. I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was too unbelievable, Victoria. Yes. You are telling me a pause that I somehow own part of Evermont. Yes. And I did not know. Yes. Well. She took a breath because your father created a trust. I listened. He wanted you to choose your own path. I frowned. What does that mean? It means he did not want money to decide your future. I became quiet. Victoria continued. He placed the shares in a trust that would only reveal itself when certain conditions were met. What conditions? She looked at the document. Your involvement with the company. I understood. My father wanted me to build my own life. Not inherit one. That sounded exactly like him. But there was one thing I still did not understand. Why did Alexander know? Victoria's expression changed. Because he helped create the original agreement. I frowned. He knew. Yes. And he kept this from me. Victoria nodded. That is why he returned. I finally understood. Alexander did not come back because he wanted Victoria. He came back because he discovered something. I was not just Victoria's employee. I was connected to Evermont from the beginning. The next day, the final shareholder meeting began. This time, everything was different. Alexander entered confidently. He thought he had already won. He thought he had exposed Victoria. He thought he had proven I did not belong. He was wrong. The chairman opened the meeting. Today we will address the ownership documents submitted by Mr. Reed. Alexander smiled. Good. He looked at me. I believe everyone deserves the truth. I almost laughed. The truth. That was exactly what he was about to face. The legal team presented the documents, original agreements, trust records, ownership history. Alexander's expression slowly changed because every page destroyed his argument. Finally, the lawyer spoke. According to the verified records, a pause. Ethan Parker is a legitimate shareholder of Evermont International. Silence. The room exploded with whispers. I looked at Victoria. She was watching me, not surprised. Not because she knew everything, because she believed in me. Alexander stood. This changes nothing. Everyone looked at him. He still lacks executive experience. I nodded. He was right about one thing. I was not Victoria. I did not have her years of leadership. I did not have her reputation, but I had something else. I had earned my place. Alexander, I said. He looked at me. You keep asking why Victoria chose me. Pause. But you never ask why she trusted me. He frowned. Because I worked. I continued. Not because I was born into power. Not because I had a famous name. Not because I could give her something. I looked around the room. I was here before anyone knew my name. Pause. And I will still be here when people stop talking about it. Nobody spoke. Then Victoria stood. I want to add something. The room became quiet. She looked at Alexander. You made the same mistake 4 years ago. Alexander frowned. What mistake? You underestimated someone because you only saw what they had. She looked at me, not who they were. Alexander had no response. The final vote began and the result was clear. The board approved my executive partner position. The ownership issue was resolved and Alexander Reed's attempt to challenge Victoria failed completely. After the meeting, I found Victoria alone. You knew my father? I asked. She nodded. Yes, before I joined Evermont? Yes. Then why did you hire me? She smiled. Because I knew who you were. I frowned. You knew not your shares. Applause. Your character. I became quiet. Victoria stepped closer. When I first saw your application 4 years ago, you were not the most experienced person. Not the person with the best background. But you wrote something I remembered. What? She smiled. You said you wanted to work somewhere your effort mattered. Pause. And I believed you. I laughed softly. So all this time, what? You knew I was important? Yes. And you still let me think I was just an employee? Victoria looked slightly embarrassed. Yes. What? She answered honestly. Because I was afraid. I froze. Victoria Sterling was afraid. She nodded. Of losing the one person who treated me normally. For a moment. Neither of us spoke. Then she said, Ethan. Yes. The blind date. I smiled. What about it? I still think my decision was correct. I laughed. You still deny my leave request? Yes. What? She looked at me. Because I was right. I shook my head. You are impossible. She smiled. And you still chose me. Before I could answer, her phone rang. She looked at the screen. The smile disappeared. What happened? I asked. She handed me the phone. A message from the board. Emergency announcement. New evidence regarding Evermont's original ownership has been discovered. I frowned. More evidence. Victoria nodded. Then I saw the sender. Alexander Reed. The message contained one sentence. You won this round. But you still do not know why Ethan Parker's father left Evermont. I looked at Victoria and suddenly I realized the mystery was not over because my father had not just invested in Evermont. He had left something behind. I spent years believing my story was simple. I was Ethan Parker, an ordinary employee, someone who worked hard, someone who stayed behind the scenes. Then Victoria Sterling entered my life. And suddenly everything I thought I knew changed. I discovered my father had been connected to Evermont. I discovered I had inherited shares. I discovered my past was connected to the company I helped build. But the biggest discovery was not about money or ownership or power. It was about one person, Victoria. Because before I knew who I was, she already believed in me. The message from Alexander stayed on my mind. You still do not know why Ethan Parker's father left Evermont. The next morning, Victoria and I met with the legal team. The room was filled with old records, documents, archives, files that had not been opened in years. The lawyer placed one folder in front of us. This is the final record connected to Ethan's father. I opened it. Inside was a letter, my father's handwriting. I froze. I had not seen his handwriting in years. Read it, Victoria said softly. I opened the letter. Ethan, if you are reading this, it means you have found the company I once believed in. But I hope you did not find it because of the money. I hope you found it because you became someone who could build something meaningful. I stopped because that sounded exactly like him. The letter continued, I invested in Evermont because I believed in its future, but I also learned something important. Companies are not built by money. They are built by people who care when nobody is watching. My eyes moved lower. If you ever meet Victoria Sterling, I froze. Victoria noticed. What? I looked at her. Your name is here. For the first time, Victoria looked shocked. I continued reading. Remember this. The person who leads Evermont must not only be talented, they must be someone who protects people. Pause. I believe Victoria has that quality. I looked at Victoria. She covered her mouth slightly. My father knew her. Before I did, the letter ended with one final sentence. If Ethan is lucky enough to meet her, tell him one thing. I held my breath. Do not let a woman like that walk away. The room became silent. I looked at Victoria. She looked emotional. Your father, she whispered. Yes, he knew. I nodded. He knew you before I did. Victoria smiled slightly. Apparently, for the first time, I saw something rare. Victoria Sterling was speechless. Later that day, Alexander requested one final meeting. Not with the board, not with lawyers, with me. Victoria wanted to come. I stopped her. Let me handle this. She looked at me. Are you sure? Yes, because this time I did not need her to protect me. I needed to prove I could stand beside her. Alexander was waiting in a quiet restaurant. He looked different, less confident, more tired. You came? He said, yes. He smiled. You know, I always thought Victoria would choose someone like me. I sat down. What? Because we were similar. Pause. We understood power. I looked at him and I do not. He laughed. No, that answer did not anger me. Because it revealed everything. Alexander thought love was about matching status. Victoria understood it was about matching values. You know why she chose you? He asked. I stayed silent because you are different. Pause. You never wanted her company. You never wanted her money. You never wanted her name. He looked at me and that made her trust you. I nodded. Yes. Alexander looked down. I made one mistake. What? I thought Victoria needed someone powerful. Pause. But she needed someone who made her feel safe. I said nothing. Because he was finally telling the truth. Before leaving, Alexander handed me a small envelope. What is this? Something your father left behind. I frowned. Why give it to me? Because I finally understand. He smiled sadly. Some things cannot be taken. Inside the envelope was a photograph. My father, a young Victoria, and a small note. One day these two will change Evermont. I smiled. Not because it was destiny, because it was proof. Sometimes people appear in your life before you. To understand why. A month later, Evermont held its annual celebration. This time I stood beside Victoria on stage. Not as her employee, not as someone chosen because of her, as her partner. The host smiled. Miss Sterling. Yes, people still remember the day you denied Ethan Parker's leave request. The audience laughed. Victoria smiled. I remember. The host continued. You told him he could only marry you. Everyone laughed again. I looked at Victoria. You really did say that. Yes, you were very confident. She nodded. I was correct. I laughed. The host asked, was that the moment you decided? Victoria looked at me. No. The room became quiet. That was the moment I admitted it. Pause. But I chose Ethan long before. She continued. When he worked hard without recognition, when he helped people without expecting anything. When he believed in this company before anyone believed in us. She smiled. I chose him because he was already the person I wanted beside me. The applause filled the room. After the event, we stood outside. Victoria. Yes. Do you regret denying my leave? She thought for a moment. No. I laughed. Seriously? Yes. What? She looked at me. Because if I had approved it a pause, I might have lost the chance to tell you. Tell me what? She took my hand. The truth. What truth? She smiled. That you were never just my employee. Pause. You were always the person I was waiting for. Years later, people still told the story. The Ice Queen CEO who denied a blind date. The employee who became her partner. The woman who said, "You could only marry me." But they only knew the dramatic part. They did not know the quiet moments. The late-night conversations. The coffee on my desk. The way Victoria learned to share her burdens. They did not know that the strongest person I ever met was also the person who taught me love was not about standing above someone. It was about standing beside them. I once asked my CEO for leave. She denied it. Not because she wanted to control my life, because she finally had the courage to ask for a place in it. And I gave her my answer. Not in a boardroom, not on a stage. Every single day. Yes. That's all for today. Remember to subscribe and support us.